Now, as I said, Ted Walter is the executive director of the International Centre for 9/11 Justice and director of Peace, War and 9/11. Ted, thanks for joining us on what I'm sure was a busy day and will be a busy day for you. Let's start with the British angle on this and the news of an important court legal breakthrough for a British citizen killed on the day. Please explain to the audience what's happened.
Yeah, well, George, thank you very much for having me on the 23rd anniversary of this solemn day. I really appreciate it. This case, some of your listeners may have heard of it, but it hasn't gotten enough attention. It's the family of Geoff Campbell, who died in the North Tower of on 9/11, and he was 31 at the time, and he was a British citizen, and his remains were repatriated to the UK over a series of years. And finally, there was an inquest held for him and 9 other British citizens in 2013. The whole proceeding took about 2 hours. It was a rubber stamp hearing, and the official cause of his death now following that inquest is that he died because American Airlines Flight 11 caused the collapse of the North Tower, thus killing him. And so ever since then, his family has been trying to reopen the inquest. They were not present at the inquest, but they quickly heard of the conclusion. And ever since then, they have been trying to reopen the inquest because they believe that that official cause of death is untrue. They believe that the building did not collapse due to the airliner hitting it. And under British law, there is a process that makes it actually quite easy for families, if they believe that the official finding is untrue and they believe that they have new evidence that was not considered at the first inquest, to reopen the inquest. And it's really, the test for this is not difficult. Really, any new evidence that could possibly, even has the remotest chance of calling into question the original conclusion is supposed to trigger a new inquest. Not only that, not only do they have actually thousands of pages of evidence that was not considered at the first inquest in 2013, they also, you can also ask for a new inquest when it's provable that the coroner did not conduct a sufficient inquiry. So in the case of this inquest, the coroner simply concluded that the airplane caused the collapse of the building without hearing even a shred of evidence to support that conclusion. So they have a very clear-cut case that there was an insufficiency of inquiry at this inquest. And so in 2021, 3 years ago in August, they submitted a 2,500-page application with lots of new evidence and legal grounds for reopening their inquest. They submitted it to the Attorney General for England and Wales. And the Attorney General sat on that application for almost 2 years. And finally, in July of last year, issued a decision denying the family the right to apply to the High Court for the new inquest to be granted. And so the family was going to challenge that decision a year ago and gave the Attorney General notice. The Attorney General suddenly turned around and withdrew the decision. After 2 years of working on this decision, supposedly turned around and withdrew it. And then 5 months later, in January of this year, issued yet another decision denying their right to apply for a new inquest to the High Court. And so now they are taking the Attorney General to court. They are filing for judicial review of the Attorney General's decision, and they will be making that filing on Friday, 2 days from now.
And what sort of case are they going to make, Ted?
Well, if you would read the Attorney General's decision, it would be clear to you, George, and it's clear to anybody who reads it, that the Attorney General did not engage with the evidence whatsoever. The Attorney General has put out a series of completely ludicrous reasons, simply just dismissing the evidence as fanciful, saying that the consensus view is that the Twin Towers collapsed due to the airplane impacts and the fires, and therefore there's no grounds for reopening the inquest. We can show based on the letter of the law that the Attorney General has broken the law in a severe way in not engaging with the evidence at all, not giving any reason for favoring one set of experts' opinions over another, and in many other ways, actually using an incorrect legal test, setting the bar too high for how compelling that evidence must be. It is actually not the Attorney General's job to assess the validity of the evidence. If there's any evidence that even at face value could possibly call into question the original conclusion, the family is supposed to be entitled to a new inquest. So we think we actually have a very good chance of winning at the High Court. The family does. And we are optimistic that the new Attorney General, who took office in July, will actually not elect to defend the previous Attorney General, Victoria Prentice's decision, and that the new Attorney General will withdraw this decision. And that is what we are asking the Attorney General to do. We're filing with the High Court, but the family is also asking the Attorney General to avoid this whole judicial review process, withdraw the decision, and finally allow the inquest to go forward 3 years after the family originally asked for it.
And is it the contention that whilst no one can doubt that airplanes struck the Twin Towers, that cannot have been the reason for their precipitous collapse, based on engineering and scientific evidence that this impact would not have caused, alone would not have caused the collapse of the towers?
Yeah, that's correct, George. The family, as I mentioned, submitted 2,500 pages of evidence 3 years ago, and that consisted of expert statements from 6 expert witnesses providing evidence, and just thousands of pages of attachments and scientific papers and studies and reports showing that the buildings could not have collapsed due to fire, and showing the overwhelming evidence that they were brought down with explosives and incendiaries. The application also included original statements from 5 eyewitnesses to the destruction of the towers, all of whom believed that the building had been brought down that the building had exploded or collapsed due to explosives. Now, George, I'm not seeing you anymore.
I'm seeing you fine and hearing you very clear. Many in the audience, not me now, I may say, but many in the audience will balk at the sheer level, a Himalayan, Everestian level of conspiracy that would have to have occurred for this case to be found correct and truthful. And many people balk at that. You can understand why. But when we see the conduct of our affairs, the conduct of our governments on many other issues, as each year goes by, somehow that Himalayan mountain range of skepticism begins to shrink. And you heard me say what the poll's looking like here now. An average of 93, 94% of the people on this poll do not believe the official account. Are you finding a similar level of skepticism in the United States?
I am finding that level of skepticism, yes. Certainly in my community where I live in the Hudson Valley in New York State, the people I talk to, the other parents that I talk to, it's rare now that I will encounter somebody who is against what I do for a living, for my and what I've been doing since 2006. I think that we are on our way to a tipping point. I think we're seeing it, and I think that this we'll see. But this British family's effort, the family of Geoff Campbell, their effort could hopefully play a major role in that tipping point going all the way and into a full-blown sort of awakening. And we are seeing it. Your poll results clearly show it. You're increasing comfort talking about it, and the response that I'm getting from people everywhere when I talk about it. And what we're seeing online today on the 11th, on this 23rd anniversary, the awareness is just exploding. So.
Yes, very clearly. I've noticed a distinct uptick in that. It took many years for the official narrative of the Kennedy assassination to run to the levels now of risible. No sentient being would any longer claim that Jack Kennedy was killed by a lone gunman in a book repository in Dallas in 1963. No one any longer believes that, though some still pretend to do so. And Donald Trump, for example, if he is elected again as president, has promised to publish the remaining redacted evidence in that case. It's not taken as long, has it, for the 9/11 official account to become as discredited as it appears to be now. Why is that, do you think?
It's a good question, George. I wasn't able to gauge because I was born in 1982, so I wasn't able to sort of gauge the increasing awareness of the JFK assassination and the truth behind it. I think I understand that Oliver Stone's film JFK in the early 90s was a bit of a watershed moment, led to a real increase in awareness. So that's almost 30 years after. I think technology and the internet and social media and has helped a lot. The amount of documentation that there was of the event itself on 9/11. Obviously, today there would even be probably thousands more pieces of video footage and angles of the destruction of the buildings and other aspects of the event compared to 23 years ago. But so I think it's the technology that has helped a lot, and I think it's the fact that there is this sort of crumbling sense of trust in government and trust in institutions. Exactly. And it's been growing. It's been forever, you could say. It certainly took a turn or expanded with the JFK assassination, and then with 9/11, it took it to a new level. And now, for the last 23 years, we've been living in a sort of a decaying environment of trust in government, and rightly so. Rightly so. I think, yeah.
I was just going to make that very point. A significant factor must be the declining credibility of the official narrative on anything. If they told you that today was Wednesday, you definitely want to check. And perhaps that began, I personally think so, me and Bob Dylan think so, on Elm Street in 1963. But other events have similarly discredited official narratives across the board. 9/11, the Iraq War and the lies that were told about it and to manufacture consent for it, the disputed elections in the United States, the suspicion that the elections even are stolen and might be stolen again, the weaponization of the justice system to put electoral opponents out of the game. All these things have led to a crisis of confidence in the official state in your country and in mine, I may say. That must be a major factor, Ted.
It is a major factor for sure, perhaps the biggest factor. And along with the passage of time, it does get easier for people to sort of face the trauma of 9/11 or what was traumatic. And also you have a younger generation coming up that didn't experience it. So we have all these factors. I would like to think, and what my organization, the International Center for 9/11 Justice, is striving for, is to just bring down the entire tapestry of lies that has been surrounding us for the last better part of a century, and to bring down what might be the heart, the engine of those lies, which is the war machine, and then the other sort of special interests and corporate interests that have also sort of contributed to and used this system to increase their power, increase wealth, etc. And I think we are on our way to a turning point. We are on our way to an awakening. And 9/11, I've gravitated to 9/11 because I thought it provided the best potential to have this awakening and to hit reset. Because I think we can and we all deserve a system, a world where we can trust our institutions, where our institutions are comprised of good people, and where corporate interests and so on don't have outsized influence in the way that our governments are run. I think we can get there. I'm a little optimistic, though.
All I'm asking for, I should say, is a proper inquiry, a reset. Let's go back to square one. You say a century. Let's settle for 9/11. It's not necessarily the case that you and I or any or all of the people who don't believe the official account necessarily believe an alternative account, or the same alternative account rather. But we don't believe the official account, and therefore the official account should be reopened. There should be a new 9/11 inquiry that is not trapped by what we very widely, it seems, believe to be a false and misleading inquiry. Isn't that so?
I agree with you completely. I think that for us to get to a point where there will be an honest government-based investigation will require an immense level of awareness and demand from the public and sort of an ongoing scrutiny to ensure that any investigation is conducted, in a serious manner. I think we're ultimately, in some sense, the awakening might precede the actual investigation, right? To have that level of pressure and for it to be a real investigation, we're going to have to, keep raising awareness and keep investigating what actually happened that day. That part of what my organization is dedicated to, besides raising awareness, educating the public, we're not waiting around for the government to give us that investigation. It is our mission to establish fully an accurate account of what actually took place that day to the best of our ability based on the evidence that's available to us. And we're making strides towards that every day.
Well, the very best of good luck in your ongoing endeavours. Ted, thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows, and we'll look out for that English case with intense interest. Ted Walter, Executive Director of the International Centre for 9/11